Hello everybody, thank you for joining. So today I wanted to talk about how I water my plants, what my process is, and kind of give you an idea of, the history and some trivia of the plants that I'm watering. I have everything on an app that tells me approximately when they should be watered, and then based on the time of based on what they look like, I might change my mind and decide something different. So today we're going to do a short video for what I call my small shelf. I have a bunch of plants that need to be watered, and I wanted to give you an idea of, what these particular ones look like and how I water them. So the first thing I do is I make sure that I have 2 saucers. And my watering can is ready with either rainwater or treated tap water. And then I'll go through my app, and based on the plants in the app, I'll choose them one by one and I'll water them. Today what I'm going to do is water this one. This is a baby's necklace. I actually have 2 baby's necklaces. They came as a set. And I split them based on the size. So I've got a big one and I've got a small one. The big one doesn't, we're going to set the small one aside a second and talk about the big one. So the big one's in a pot that doesn't have a big drainage hole on the bottom. So the reason for the 2 saucers is I will water the plant based on the pot and how well it drains. I'll water it until it flows through. I'll let it drain, and then often I will set it aside to let it drain further before I put it back on the shelf, just so the shelves don't fill up with too much runoff. So there's a smaller one. These are doing very well under the highlights. Getting a little bit of what you would call, light stressing or sun stressing. Okay, that one drains really well. I'll put it back and we can move on. Those particular plants, I had them for about 1 year and 6 months. So they're very slow growing. And what you'll notice is these are very close together. They're getting the right amount of light. They grow pretty slowly. And I expect them to stay kind of in this size and shape for a number of more years. I will mark them in my app as having been watered and move on to the next one. So this one is called a Desert Surprise. I did have some issues with it, and I think it had powdery mildew, and I pinched off the center of these leaves. But you'll see it's a very, very pretty plant. Based on the colors, it likes the light that it's getting. It's just gorgeous. It's in a well-draining mix as well. So we're going to go ahead and water that. I try to get it dispersed throughout so that the roots, which, I can't see those roots. I don't know if they're doing well or not. But so the roots will get as much water as possible. And then it'll drain out the bottom and I can put it back on the shelf. The next plant in the app is called High Voltage. And this looks very similar to my conjuncta. They're both crassula, but definitely under the lights I can see the difference. This one is the conjuncta, this one is the High Voltage. It's redder, even under the same conditions. Redder and a different kind of green. When I first got it, it didn't really look much different, and I thought it was one of those situations where the naming conventions are so similar for the exact same plant, and that I kind of got duped. But I've been very pleased with it, and it's growing really well. I've had this one for about 6 months. The next one is a powder puff. It is a type of Pacuvaria. Most likely named this because of the the farina, the wax coating on the leaves. This I've had for a year and 4 months. So you can see that when I started with succulents, you learn to be patient and realize that they do stay pretty small. It'll depend on your conditions and all of that. House succulents are likely going to stay pretty small. Okay, my next one in the app is called Springtime, and it is this one. This is a type of crassula. When I bought it, it was not labeled. Later, I identified it by pictures as a springtime. And I have them in 2 different pots, bigger ones in a different pot. This one's doing well. It doesn't looks a little underwatered actually, if you look at the squishiness of the bottom leaves, but it doesn't look overwatered, and that's good. I mean, an overwatered succulent is a bad thing, so we're going to go ahead and put that back. I've had the springtime for about 8 months. The next one is the Andromysticus. The next one is the Andromysticus cristata. I am not necessarily a fan of this plant. It's got lots of aerial roots. Its leaves look a little off, but it's alive and it's going, and so I'm just gonna keep on keeping on with this. I'll go ahead and water it. I noticed that it is slow draining, so I'm going to set it aside and let it drain a little further. I actually had this for about 11 months. The next plant is the baby's necklace variegated. That's a crassula as well. I've had this for about 11 months. I'm very happy with how it is growing and developing. When I got it, it was just the 4 stems, most likely cuttings from a mother plant. And what you'll see is that we have pieces that are branching off from various parts. It's really established and coming into its own over time. Just a beautiful specimen. I'm very happy with it. And maybe at a later date, I'll be able to propagate it when I finally have it established on its own. The color is amazing, and the way where I have it under the lights, it's just maintaining it. And in some places, there's like little rosy edges where it's probably getting a lot more light than others. My next plant is called a platyphylla. It's a type of crassula, and you can see how it's all like clustered together. It stacks in a semi-symmetrical fashion, but it also is a little odd, and architecturally is very, very cute. So I'm gonna go ahead and water this. This came in a pot that had multiple cuttings as well. So I'm going to set this one aside, and I'm going to bring forth the other one. So this one is a little bit bigger. I put it in the pot by itself. It's also got a little plantlet growing right here. So you can see that it's probably a pretty happy plant. It's got an amazing color, very red. I'm going to put them back where they belong. But I wanted to give you another look at the green and the red mixed together. What a very charming little plant. Next plant, I labeled it as a Monticola newbie. Because it's a plant that I bought separately from some of the other Monticola I already have. This is one of my very favorite plants. I ordered it from Mountain Crest Gardens. I probably got this one separately because I needed to make up some money to get free shipping, and this is always one of my favorite plants. What you've seen me do right there is I pulled off some yellow leaves that the plant looked like it wanted to shed. Most likely I overwater these a little too much. They're very forgiving plants in the overwatering department, but the leaves are so fat, and you know, I've never had them split, so I must be doing something right. I love the growth habit. So this plant, the heads of these plants can sometimes be a little delicate. If you knock them, they will pop off pretty easily. I assume that in the wild, that's one of the ways that they propagate, because I have additional plants, such as this one, that was a total propagation by accident. I knocked a head off, I stuck it in a pot, I propagated it, and it grew, and now it's in its own little pot. What I really like is the growth habit on these. If you do accidentally pop off a head, you just throw it in some sort of media, and for me, they root really easily. What you'll see is that this is where one had popped off. It grew leaves, and it grew and it stacked like really quickly, which is why I'm thinking I probably overwater them. I don't know if they're supposed to grow that quickly, but within just a month or two, I've gotten new heads that will split into separate ones. I popped this one off by accident, and it's going to grow new leaves as well. So this feels dry, so let me go ahead and water this now. And then, yeah, the second one, it was the Monticola prop. I'm going to go ahead and water that. This was probably a piece that broke off, or I cut off, or I separated from a main plant for some reason, and I propagated it, and now it's its own little plant. At the base of some of the leaves, I've got a couple of baby ones growing in, new heads that will eventually appear. Very adorable how they stack and they cluster. Okay, another one of my favorite plants has been the rosary vine. It's another type of stacking crassula. You see how the leaves grow? Let's see if I can find one doing anything interesting. No, I don't see any splitting, but I do see a lot of extra babies towards the bottom where it's going to grow up into new little shoots. I like how it grows because it kind of looks like if you were a miniature person, or you had miniatures, it looks like a palm tree almost. A fantasy palm tree probably, but so architectural and so sweet. I also like the minty green color on this and how it grows very symmetrically. It does have a tendency to lose the bottom leaves, which is why you can see so many stems. And I didn't know whether it was something I was doing wrong or whether it should look like that. And I have another one that looks very similar. It does the same thing with the little woody trunks. The next one is my string of buttons. This is another crassula. It does have a sprout on the bottom. I don't have a lot of experience with this particular variety, so I don't know what it's going to do exactly, but it's very pretty. One of the things I notice is how towards the bottom there's space, and then up here there's not. So I feel like at one point it might not have been getting enough light, or let's say as much light as I'm giving it, and then it's stacking and it's all very close together. It's pretty, and it's another one of those very symmetrical plants that does the growing up and up and up. This one came in an arrangement with another couple of cuttings that I put separately. It wasn't doing well in comparison with them. And I wonder if I overwatered it because it looks like the leaf might have split. But, you know, it's got to deal with what I'm going to give it. I've had this for about 1 year and 4 months. And it has put on growth, but you see it's still a very small, compact plant at this point. The next plant is the ox tongue damaged. This is a gasteria, and I call it damaged because the leaf was almost fallen off. I didn't pull it off, so it's attached, but it's not in line with the rest of the plant. And it's in a very small pot because when I got it, it had very small roots. But it's nice and fat because, you know, I overwater everything. I know I do. But I love a really fat gasteria. They're kind of bumpy leaves. One of the neat things about this particular plant is it doesn't have farina. So if you're somebody who likes to touch plants, gasteria won't be injured by you touching them. Whereas some of the other plants, it's obvious that they've got a coating or farina, or you really just don't want to be petting those leaves to take off that farina. Gasteria in general don't tend to have farina. So I've had that one for about 9 months. The next one I have is a type of peperomia. I think I got this also at Mountain Crest Gardens, and I treat it like a succulent because it was sold as a succulent. It's called Ruby Glow. In general, what you would look for if it was thirsty is these leaves would sink in. This is not a really thirsty plant. I can also see where it was cut. So this is where it was cut from the mother plant. I don't really have a lot to say about it. I've had it for about 1 year and it's very small. I know that succulents take a long time to grow, but they also take a long time to acclimate. So it could still be in an acclimation process, or it's just not going to grow because I'm just not giving it exactly what it wants. Hard to say. Okay, the next plant I have, the next plant is called Sedum Orange. It might be a variant of an Adolphi. I put it in a pot with blue fire glass because I thought the color contrast was pretty. I've had this for about 1 year and 7 months, and it's not really done much. But being this close under the lights keeps it really, really stressed and really orange. Hence probably the name, you know, orange. I'm going to set it aside and let it drain a little bit longer. The next plant is a Graptovaria Mendoza. This is a very odd plant. I've had it for 1 year and 6 months. It has produced babies, like little shoots at the bottom. So it's not totally unhappy. But what it has a tendency to do is to grow leaves from the center and lose leaves on the bottom. So it's always growing up and up and getting very leggy looking over time. The orange can go back. I wouldn't say I'm in love with it, but it's still growing, it's still doing, it's still alive, and it's, you know, it's hanging in there. And it's got a very unique color. And I top dressed with like slightly bigger rocks to give it some dramatic effect. It's one of the things that I do in my plant room is I top dress to give dramatic effect. Because not only the plants are my showcase, but the whole presentation is what I'm after. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope that it gives you some thought, lets you see the progress and the process of watering the plants, and you know, a little bit of history of just the ones that we've looked at today. And I will do this again, and I hope that you join me later. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.